I ran to the operating room. A nurse said, "Hide, it's a trap." When I saw my husband, everything changed. Hey besties, before we dive into this absolutely wild story, tell me, where are you watching from? US, UK, Canada, Australia, Africa? Anywhere else? I love knowing how far my stories reach. Drop your location in the comments. This is the story of how one terrifying night in a hospital turned everything I thought I knew about my marriage completely upside down. How a stranger's warning saved my life. And how the man I trusted most was keeping secrets that nearly destroyed us both. I was halfway down the hospital corridor when I heard my name. Not a normal call. Not the kind of, "Ma'am, can you wait here?" that you hear in hospitals every day. But a desperate, urgent hiss that cut through the chaos of doctors shouting orders and machines beeping and gurneys rolling past. "Mrs. Davis." I turned, confused, my heart already pounding from the panic that had been building since I got the call 20 minutes ago. A nurse I'd never seen before was staring at me. Young, maybe late 20s, with dark hair pulled back in a tight ponytail and eyes that were wide with something that looked an awful lot like fear. She grabbed my arm before I could say anything. Not gently, hard, urgent. "What are you?" "Shh." She pressed a finger to her lips and pulled me toward a small alcove near the storage closets. Away from the main hallway. Away from the people rushing past. My first instinct was to pull away. To demand answers. To run toward the operating room, where they told me my husband was. But something in her expression stopped me cold. Terror. That's what I saw in her eyes. Pure, unfiltered terror. "You need to hide," she whispered, her grip on my arm tightening. "Right now, please." I stared at her. "What are you talking about?" "My husband, they called me, he collapsed, I need to see him." "I know," she interrupted, glancing over her shoulder like she was checking to make sure no one was listening. "I know why you're here. But you can't go in there." "Not yet." "Why not?" She looked at me for a long moment, and then she said 3 words that changed everything. "It's a trap." The hallway seemed to tilt. The fluorescent lights overhead felt too bright. The smell of antiseptic and floor cleaner was suddenly overwhelming. "What?" I managed to say. "Your husband," she stopped, shook her head. "I can't explain everything right now. But you need to trust me. If you go into that operating room, everything gets worse. Do you understand?" "No," I said, my voice rising. "No, I don't understand. What trap? What are you talking about?" She opened her mouth to answer, but before she could, we both heard it. A voice. Loud. Raw. Desperate. Screaming. My husband's voice. "Sarah!" My name. He was screaming my name like his life depended on it. Coming from inside the operating room. Every instinct in my body told me to run toward that voice. To push through those doors and get to him. To find out what was happening. I tried to move, but the nurse's grip on my arm was like iron. "Let me go!" I pulled against her, panic flooding my system. "That's my husband, I have to." "No," she said firmly. "Not yet." "Are you insane? He's in there, something's wrong." "I know something's wrong." Her voice was sharp now. Intense. "But if you go in there right now, before you know what's happening, you're going to make everything worse. For him. For you. For everyone." I stopped struggling. Not because I wanted to, but because something in her tone made me listen. "What things?" I asked, my voice shaking. "What are you talking about? What's happening?" She glanced down the hallway again. Doctors and nurses were still rushing past. No one was paying attention to us, but she looked terrified that someone might. "Your husband is alive," she said quietly. "He's in surgery, but he's stable, or at least he was 5 minutes ago." "Then why are you telling me to hide?" "Because there are things you don't know. Things he hasn't told you. And if you walk in there right now, unprepared." She trailed off, but the look in her eyes finished the sentence. "Everything would fall apart." "What things?" I demanded. "What hasn't he told me?" She hesitated, and in that hesitation, I saw something that terrified me more than anything else so far. Pity. She pitied me, which meant whatever secret my husband had been keeping, whatever had brought him to this hospital, whatever had made a stranger grab me in a hallway and tell me to hide, it was bad. Really bad. "I can't explain everything right now," she said, "but I need you to stay here. Just for a few minutes. I'll come back. I promise. But please don't go in there yet. You can't just. But she was already gone, disappearing back into the chaos of the hospital corridor, weaving between gurneys and doctors and leaving me standing there alone, shaking, confused, terrified. I pressed my back against the wall, trying to steady my breathing, trying to think through the panic that was threatening to swallow me whole. What trap? What hadn't my husband told me? And why was everyone acting like I was in danger? The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Somewhere down the hall, someone was crying. A machine beeped steadily, rhythmically, and all I could hear in my head was his voice, screaming my name, like he was terrified, like he was warning me, or calling for help. I didn't know which, and that's what scared me most. Because in that moment, standing in that hospital hallway, I realized something I'd been trying not to admit for months. I didn't know my husband anymore. The man I'd married 5 years ago, the man who'd promised to love me, to be honest with me, to build a life with me, had been replaced by someone I didn't recognize. Someone who came home smelling like perfume, someone who lied about dinner receipts, someone who kept his phone face down and took calls in other rooms, someone who had secrets. And now, apparently, those secrets had landed him in an operating room, with a nurse telling me to hide, with a trap I didn't understand, with a truth I wasn't ready to face. I closed my eyes and tried to steady my breathing, tried to think, but all I could think was, what have you done, Mark? What have you done? And why do I feel like I'm about to lose everything? I need to tell you something about my husband. About us. About the last 6 months of our marriage. Because standing in that hospital hallway, hidden like a fugitive, being told there was a trap I didn't understand, I started replaying everything in my head. Every strange moment, every red flag I'd ignored. Every time I told myself I was being paranoid. And suddenly, all those pieces started fitting together in a way that made my stomach turn. My husband, Mark, and I met 7 years ago. Married 5 years ago. It was the kind of love story people write about. Instant connection, easy conversation. The feeling that you'd known each other your whole lives even though you'd just met. He was an accountant, steady, reliable. The kind of man who remembered anniversaries and brought flowers home for no reason and always made me feel safe. Or at least he used to. Because about 6 months ago, something shifted. It started small. So small I almost didn't notice. He started coming home late. Not every night. Just once, maybe twice a week. He'd walk through the door at 9 or 10 o'clock, looking exhausted, and I'd ask where he'd been. Work, he'd say. Boss needed me to finish up some reports. You want dinner? I can heat something up. Already ate. Thanks though. Already ate. At work. Alone. Reasonable, right? People work late. People get busy. It didn't mean anything. Except it kept happening. And then his phone started lighting up at weird hours. Text messages. At midnight. At 2 in the morning. When he was in the shower or asleep next to me. I noticed because the glow would light up our bedroom. Because the vibration against the nightstand would wake me up. And one night, curiosity got the better of me. I picked up his phone. It was locked, of course. But I could see the preview of the message on the screen. We need to talk. Tonight. No name. Just a number I didn't recognize. My heart started pounding. I put the phone back down. Told myself it was nothing. Work. Probably work. But when Mark came out of the shower and saw his phone, he picked it up quickly. Too quickly. Read the message. Deleted it without responding. And didn't say a word to me about it. Everything okay? I asked, trying to sound casual. Yeah. Fine. Just work stuff. Just work stuff. But he was holding his phone tighter, and he took it into the bedroom with him when he went to change. That's when the distance started. Not physical distance. We still lived in the same house. Still slept in the same bed. Still said, I love you before hanging up the phone. But emotionally, he was somewhere else. I'd catch him staring at nothing, lost in thought. And when I'd ask what he was thinking about, he'd snap back to reality with a forced smile and say, nothing, just work. Always work. He started keeping his phone face down on tables. Started taking calls in the other room. Started closing his laptop whenever I walked into his office. And one night, He came home smelling like perfume. Not mine. Something floral and expensive and unfamiliar. I was folding laundry when he walked in. "Hey," I said, trying to keep my voice light. "Did you meet with clients today?" He frowned. "What? No." "Why? You smell like perfume." He looked down at his shirt, like he was just noticing it for the first time. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. "I have no idea. Maybe I stood next to someone in the elevator. You know how strong perfume can be." "Yeah," I said. "I guess." But the smell lingered. And so did the doubt. I started watching him more closely after that, noticing things I'd been too trusting to see before. The way he'd shower as soon as he got home, even if he wasn't dirty. The way he'd started dressing nicer. New shirts. Better cologne. Like he was trying to impress someone. The way he'd check his phone constantly, even during dinner. Even when we were watching TV together. "Who keeps texting you?" I asked one night, unable to keep the edge out of my voice. "Just the work group chat," he said without looking up. "Can I see?" His head snapped up. "What?" It snapped up. "Can I see the messages? I'm just curious what's so important." He stared at me for a long moment, and then he said something that made my blood run cold. "Why are you interrogating me, Sarah?" Interrogating. That was the word he used. Like asking a simple question about his phone was a criminal offense. "I'm not interrogating you," I said carefully. "I'm just asking." "Well, don't." He stood up, taking his phone with him. "I'm allowed to have privacy, you know." And he walked out of the room, leaving me sitting there, staring at the TV, feeling like I'd just been slapped. That was 2 months ago, and it only got worse from there. He started disappearing on weekends. "Running errands," he'd say, but he'd be gone for hours. And when he came back, he'd have nothing to show for it. No groceries. No packages. Nothing. "What errands?" I asked once. "Just stuff. Why do you need a full report every time I leave the house?" "I don't. You just what? Don't trust me?" And there it was. The question I'd been afraid to ask. The accusation he was making before I could even voice my concerns. "I do trust you," I said quietly. But I didn't. Not anymore. And he knew it. The final straw came 2 weeks ago. I was doing laundry, going through his jeans pockets before throwing them in the wash, and I found a receipt. Dinner for 2. At a restaurant called Rosario's. An Italian place on the other side of town that I'd never been to. The date on the receipt was from last Thursday, the night he told me he was working late. I stared at that receipt for a long time. At the itemized list. 2 entrees. 2 glasses of wine. Dessert. $97. For a work dinner with a coworker. I confronted him that night. "Who were you having dinner with last Thursday?" He was in his office, working on his laptop. He barely glanced at the receipt I was holding. "A coworker." It was a work thing. "What coworker? Does it matter?" "Yes, Mark. It matters." He sighed, closed his laptop, looked at me with those tired, distant eyes and said, "Sarah, you're being paranoid." "I'm being paranoid?" "You lied to me. You said you were working late." "I was working. We had a working dinner." "That's still work." "At a romantic Italian restaurant?" "It wasn't romantic. It was dinner. And I don't appreciate being accused of something I didn't do." "I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just asking." "No," he interrupted. "You're interrogating me. Again. And I'm done with it." He stood up, grabbed his phone, and walked out. Left me standing there holding a receipt for a dinner he'd lied about. And I didn't know what to do. So I did nothing. I told myself I was overreacting. That there was probably a reasonable explanation. That marriages go through rough patches. But deep down, I knew. Something was wrong. I just didn't know what. Until tonight. Until I got a phone call from an unknown number telling me to come to the hospital. Until a nurse grabbed me in a hallway and told me it was a trap. Until I realized that all those months of lies and secrets and distance had been leading to this moment. Standing here. Alone. Scared. Waiting for the truth. My phone buzzed in my pocket, jolting me back to reality. I pulled it out with shaking hands. Unknown number. I answered. "Hello? Mrs. Davis?" A man's voice. Calm. Professional. Authoritative. "Yes?" This is Detective Monroe with the Metropolitan Police Department. I need you to come to St. Mary's Hospital immediately. Your husband has been involved in an incident. My heart stopped. I'm already here, I said. What incident? What's happening? Is he okay? There was a pause. A long pause. Like he was deciding how much to tell me. Ma'am, when you arrive at the hospital, please ask for me directly at the information desk. Don't speak to anyone else. Don't go to the operating room. Don't talk to any medical staff. Just ask for me. Do you understand? No, I said, my voice rising. No, I don't understand. What's going on? Why can't I talk to anyone? Why? But he'd already hung up. I stood there staring at my phone. Detective Monroe, Metropolitan Police. My husband had been involved in an incident. What kind of incident required police involvement? A car accident? A fight? Something worse? And why was he telling me not to talk to anyone? My mind raced through possibilities, each one worse than the last. But I was already at the hospital, already past the information desk, already being told to hide by a nurse who looked terrified. Something wasn't adding up. I needed to find Detective Monroe, needed answers, needed to understand what was happening. But before I could move, I heard footsteps. Fast, urgent. I pressed myself back into the alcove, my heart hammering. And then, I saw her. The same nurse who'd grabbed me earlier, running down the hallway with something clutched to her chest. A folder. A thick manila folder. She spotted me immediately and changed direction, heading straight toward my hiding spot. You're still here, she said, breathless, her face flushed. You told me to stay. I know, but things are moving faster than I thought. The police are already here. Detectives. They're asking questions. She thrust the folder into my hands. You need to see this. Right now, before they find you. What is this? I looked down at the folder. It was labeled with a patient number and a name I didn't recognize. Just open it, she urged. Please. My hands were shaking as I opened the folder. Inside were medical forms, admission papers, emergency contact information, patient name, Elena Martinez, age, 32, admission time, 6:47 p.m., reason for admission, suspected poisoning. My eyes caught on that last line and wouldn't let go. Poisoning. Who is Elena Martinez? I asked. Looking up at the nurse. She was brought in about 3 hours ago, the nurse said, her voice low, urgent. Critical condition. The paramedics said she was barely conscious when they found her. She'd called 911 herself, said someone had poisoned her. My stomach dropped. Poisoned her? How? Why? I don't know the details. But when the police questioned her when she was lucid enough to speak, the nurse paused, like she didn't want to say what came next. She told them your husband did it. The hallway tilted. The fluorescent lights seemed to pulse. I gripped the folder tighter, trying to steady myself. That's impossible, I said automatically. Mark wouldn't, he's not capable of. I'm just telling you what she said, Mrs. Davis. But that doesn't make any sense. Who even is this woman? I've never heard of an Elena Martinez. Why would she accuse my husband of poisoning her? The nurse reached over and flipped to another page in the folder, a photocopy of a driver's license. Elena Martinez stared back at me from the photo. Dark hair, high cheekbones, pretty in a way that made something twist in my chest. And then I saw the address. 1247 Riverside Drive. 3 blocks from our house. She lives near us, I whispered. The nurse nodded grimly. And look at this. She pointed to another line on the admission form. Emergency contact. Mark Davis, my husband's name, written in neat print, with our phone number. She'd listed him as her emergency contact. I don't understand, I said, though part of me was connecting dots I didn't want to connect. Mark never mentioned knowing anyone named Elena. He never. And then I stopped. Because suddenly, I was remembering things. The perfume, the late nights, the secret phone calls, the receipt for dinner at Rosario's. Oh God, you think they were having an affair, I said. It wasn't a question. The nurse didn't answer, just looked at me with those pitying eyes. But if they were having an affair, I continued, my mind racing, Why would he poison her? That doesn't make sense. People don't poison their... I couldn't finish the sentence. Maybe it wasn't an affair, the nurse said carefully. Maybe it was something else. Something more complicated. Like what? I don't know. That's what the police are trying to figure out. Before I could respond, an alarm blared through the hospital. Loud, urgent, terrifying. Code Blue. Operating Room 3. Code Blue. All available staff to OR 3. Operating Room 3. Where Mark was. The nurse's face went white. Oh no. What? Panic flooded my system. What does that mean? It means your husband's crashing. His heart. But she didn't finish because I was already running. Running toward the operating room. Past nurses, past doctors, past people shouting for me to stop. I could hear the alarms. Could hear people yelling medical terms I didn't understand. Could hear the frantic beeping of machines. I reached the double doors of the OR and tried to push through, but someone grabbed me. Security. A large man in a dark uniform. Ma'am, you can't go in there. That's my husband, I screamed. Let me go. I need to see him. Ma'am, the doctors are working. I don't care. He's my husband. But more people were holding me back now. Nurses. Another security guard. Hands on my arms, my shoulders, pulling me away from the doors. Through the small window, I could see shadows. Movement. Doctors rushing around a table. Machines. Chaos. And somewhere in the middle of it all was Mark, my husband. Possibly dying. While I stood here, useless, being physically restrained. Please, I begged. Please, let me see him. Please. But they wouldn't. They held me back while doctors rushed in and out, while I heard the flat, terrible sound of a heart monitor flatlining, while everything I'd ever loved hung in the balance. And then, finally, the chaos stopped. The alarm cut off, the doors opened, and a doctor emerged. Young, exhausted, with blood on his scrubs. Mrs. Davis? He asked. Yes. My voice came out as barely a whisper. Is he? He's stable, the doctor said. For now. I nearly collapsed with relief. Thank God. Thank God. Can I see him? Not yet. He's still unconscious. And... The doctor glanced at someone behind me. Detective Monroe needs to speak with you first. I turned. A man in a suit was standing there. Tall, mid-40s, with sharp eyes that seemed to see everything. Mrs. Davis, he said. I'm Detective Monroe. We spoke on the phone. I need to see my husband. I understand. But first, I need to ask you some questions. About your husband. And about Elena Martinez. That name again. I don't know who that is, I said. Detective Monroe pulled out a small notebook. Your husband listed you as his wife on his medical forms. But Elena Martinez listed him as her emergency contact. Can you explain that? No. I've never heard of her. Are you sure? Because she seems to know your husband very well. Well enough to trust him in an emergency. I'm telling you, I don't know her. The detective studied me for a long moment. Then he said, Mrs. Davis, your husband regained consciousness briefly before he crashed. Do you know what he said? My heart was pounding. No, what? He said. Don't let her find out. The words hung in the air like smoke. Don't let her find out. Find out what? Who was he talking about? I asked, though I was afraid I already knew the answer. Me? We don't know. But we need to figure that out, because Elena Martinez is still in critical condition, and your husband is the last person who saw her before she collapsed. Detective Monroe led me to a small consultation room down the hall. The kind of room where doctors deliver bad news to families. Beige walls. Uncomfortable chairs. A box of tissues on the table that somehow made everything worse. Sit, he said. Not unkindly, but not like I had a choice, either. I sat. He remained standing, his notebook open, his pen ready. Mrs. Davis, I need you to be completely honest with me. Your husband's life may depend on it. So may Elena Martinez's. I am being honest, I said. I don't know who she is. You've never heard your husband mention her name? Never. Has he been acting differently lately? Staying out late? Being secretive? My throat tightened. Because yes to all of it. He's been working late, I said carefully. The last few months. But that's normal. He's an accountant. Tax season gets busy. Detective Monroe wrote something down. What firm does he work for? Henderson and Associates. And you verified that he's actually been at work during these late nights? I hesitated. Because no, I hadn't. I trusted him. No, I just assumed. Mrs. Davis, I'm going to be direct with you because we don't have time for anything else. Elena Martinez was found in her apartment at approximately 6:30 this evening. She'd ingested a lethal dose of antifreeze mixed into a bottle of wine. She managed to call 911 before losing consciousness. When the paramedics arrived, she told them, and I quote, "Mark Davis did this to me." The room spun. Antifreeze, wine, lethal dose. No, I said. No, that's not possible. Mark wouldn't. The wine bottle is being tested as we speak. We found your husband's fingerprints on it. That doesn't mean anything. Maybe he brought her wine as a gift. Maybe they're friends. Maybe... Mrs. Davis. The detective's voice was gentle but firm. Your husband was found unconscious in his car 3 blocks from Elena Martinez's apartment. He'd also ingested antifreeze. A smaller amount, but enough to cause serious damage. Do you understand what I'm telling you? I stared at him. You think he tried to kill her and then kill himself? That's one theory. But you don't know that. You don't know what happened. That's why I'm asking you questions. Help me understand. Was your marriage in trouble? I wanted to say no. Wanted to defend Mark. Defend us. But sitting in that room, with a detective staring at me and my husband unconscious in an OR and a woman I'd never heard of, dying from poison that had his fingerprints on it, I couldn't lie anymore. Yes, I said quietly. I think it was. Can you elaborate? So I told him. Everything. The late nights. The perfume. The text messages. The receipt from Rosario's. The distance. The secrets. Detective Monroe wrote it all down, his expression neutral. Did you ever confront him about infidelity? He asked. Once. He denied it. Said I was being paranoid. But you didn't believe him. I didn't know what to believe. The detective flipped back through his notes. Mrs. Davis, I need to show you something, but I have to warn you it's going to be difficult. He pulled out a tablet and opened a file. Turned the screen toward me. It was a series of photographs. Surveillance footage, it looked like, from a restaurant. And there, sitting at a corner table, was Mark. With Elena Martinez. They were laughing. His hand was on hers. She was leaning in close. The timestamp said 3 weeks ago. A Tuesday night. The night he'd told me he was working late. My chest constricted. I couldn't breathe. This was taken at Rosario's, Detective Monroe said. The restaurant on the receipt you found. How did you... We pulled security footage from multiple establishments in the area. They've been seeing each other for approximately 6 months. 6 months. The same amount of time Mark had been acting different. So they were having an affair, I said numbly. It appears so, but that's where things get complicated. He swiped to another image. This was taken 4 days ago. It was another photo. This time outside Elena's apartment building. Mark and Elena were arguing. Her arms were crossed. His hands were gesturing emphatically. Both of them looked angry. They fought, I said. According to neighbors, loudly. One neighbor said she heard Elena yell. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm telling her everything. Her. Me. Elena had threatened to tell me about the affair. And 4 days later, she was poisoned. You think Mark tried to kill her to keep her quiet, I said. It's a working theory. But then why would he poison himself? Guilt. Panic. Fear of prison. People do desperate things when they're cornered. I shook my head. No, Mark wouldn't. He's not violent. He's not a killer. You also didn't think he was the kind of man to have an affair. The words hit like a slap. Because he was right. I hadn't thought Mark was capable of cheating, of lying, of living a double life. So what else was he capable of? Detective Monroe's phone buzzed. He glanced at it and frowned. I need to take this. Don't leave this room. He stepped out into the hallway, leaving me alone with the photographs on the tablet. I stared at them. At Mark's face. At the way he was smiling at Elena. At the intimacy between them that I recognized because it used to be directed at me. How long had I been blind? How many lies had I swallowed? The nurse who'd warned me earlier, she'd been right. This was a trap. Just not the kind I'd expected. The trap wasn't for me. It was the truth. The terrible, inescapable truth that my husband wasn't who I thought he was. And now a woman was dying because of him. Or was she? Something nagged at me. Something about the story didn't fit. If Mark had poisoned Elena to keep her quiet about the affair, why would he poison himself? Guilt didn't make sense. Mark wasn't the type to fall apart under pressure. He was calculated, methodical. And if he'd wanted to kill himself, wouldn't he have taken a lethal dose? Not just enough to make him sick? Unless he wasn't trying to kill himself. Unless someone else had poisoned them both. Before I could follow that thought, the door burst open. Not Detective Monroe. The nurse. The one who'd warned me. "You need to come with me," she said urgently. "Right now." "I can't," the detective said. "I don't care what the detective said. Elena Martinez is awake, and she's asking for you." I followed the nurse through the corridors, my mind spinning. Elena Martinez was awake, and asking for me. Why would a woman I'd never met, a woman who'd been having an affair with my husband, want to see me? "Where are we going?" I asked as we turned down another hallway. "ICU, 3rd floor. She's weak, but she's conscious, and she keeps saying your name." "Why? I don't even know her." The nurse glanced at me. "Maybe that's exactly why she wants to talk to you." We reached the elevator. The nurse pressed the button repeatedly, like that would make it come faster. "Should I be doing this?" I asked. The detective told me to stay. The detective is trying to build a case, but Elena doesn't have much time. If you want answers, you need to get them now before she crashes again. The elevator doors opened. We stepped inside. As we rode up, I thought about what Detective Monroe had told me. About the affair, the argument, the poison. About Mark saying, "Don't let her find out." What if Elena knew what he'd meant by that? What if she had answers the police didn't? The elevator dinged. 3rd floor. The ICU was quieter than the ER had been. Dimmer. More controlled. But there was still an underlying tension. Machines beeping. Nurses moving with purpose. The smell of antiseptic even stronger up here. The nurse led me to a room at the end of the hall. Room 317. Through the window, I could see a woman in the bed. Dark hair spread across the pillow. Tubes and wires connecting her to machines. Her face was pale, almost gray. Elena Martinez. My husband's mistress. "She's very weak," the nurse said quietly. "Try not to upset her, and if her vitals spike, I'll have to ask you to leave." I nodded, though I wasn't sure I could speak. My throat felt tight. My hands were shaking. The nurse opened the door. Elena's eyes were closed, but they fluttered open as we entered. She turned her head slowly toward me, and I saw recognition in her eyes. "You came," she whispered. Her voice was hoarse, barely audible. Yes," I said. "I'm Sarah. Sarah Davis. I know who you are." She tried to sit up but winced in pain. The machines beeped louder. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for everything. Just rest," the nurse said, adjusting Elena's IV. "Keep your stress level down." But Elena shook her head weakly. "No. Before," she coughed. "Before it's too late." "Tell me what?" I stepped closer to the bed, my heart pounding. Elena's eyes locked onto mine. "Your husband, Mark. He's not what you think." "I know about the affair," I said. It hurt to say the words out loud. "Made it real." The detective showed me pictures. "I know you've been seeing each other." "No." Elena's voice was stronger now, urgent. "No, that's not. You don't understand." "Then help me understand." She took a shaky breath. "Mark and I, we weren't having an affair. We were never together. Not like that." I stared at her. "The detective has pictures of you at a restaurant, holding hands, laughing." "Those were staged," Elena said. "For someone else to see. To make them think. To make them believe we were together." Who needed to believe that?" Elena's eyes filled with tears. "My ex-husband. Carlos. He's been stalking me for 8 months. Ever since I left him. He's dangerous, Sarah. He's the kind of man who doesn't let go." My mind was racing, trying to process this. "So you and Mark were pretending to be together too?" What? Make your ex-husband jealous? Not jealous. To scare him off. Mark offered to help me, to pose as my new boyfriend so Carlos would think I'd moved on, so he'd leave me alone. Why would Mark do that? Elena hesitated. Then, because Carlos threatened you. Everything stopped. What? Carlos found out Mark was helping me, and he threatened to hurt you if Mark didn't back off. So Mark tried to protect both of us. He kept pretending to be with me, kept meeting me in public, trying to convince Carlos it was real. I don't understand. Why didn't Mark just tell me? Why keep it secret? Because Carlos said if Mark told anyone, especially you, he'd follow through on his threats. Mark was trying to keep you safe. The room felt like it was tilting. All those months of suspicion, of thinking Mark was cheating, of feeling betrayed. And he'd been trying to protect me? The wine, I said. The poison. Did Carlos? Yes. Elena's voice broke. Carlos came to my apartment tonight. He brought wine. Said he wanted to talk. To apologize. I knew I shouldn't let him in. But he seemed calm, rational, I thought. She coughed again, harder this time. The machines beeped frantically. The nurse stepped forward. You need to rest. No, she needs to know. Elena grabbed my hand with surprising strength. Mark showed up right after Carlos left. Saw Carlos driving away. He knew. He poured himself a glass to test it, to see if Carlos had poisoned it. He drank it on purpose? To save me. He took just enough to confirm it was poisoned. Then he called 911. But by then, I'd already drunk half the bottle. And Mark, the poison was working faster than he thought. He tried to get to his car to follow the ambulance, but he collapsed. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Mark hadn't tried to kill Elena. He'd tried to save her, and nearly died doing it. Where's Carlos now? I managed to ask. I don't know. But Sarah. Elena squeezed my hand tighter. You need to be careful. He knows who you are. He knows where you live. And if he finds out Mark survived. She trailed off. But the implication was clear. If Carlos knew Mark was alive, he'd try again. And next time, I might be the target. The nurse was checking Elena's monitors, her expression worried. Her blood pressure is spiking. You need to leave. Now. But before I could move, Elena said one more thing. Room 317. Ask the nurses, they'll tell you. Tell me what? About the other woman Carlos killed. Before me. Before Mark got involved. The nurse was already ushering me toward the door. Out. Now. I stumbled into the hallway, my legs weak, my mind reeling. Everything I thought I knew was wrong. Mark wasn't a cheater, wasn't a poisoner, wasn't trying to kill anyone. He was trying to save someone. And now we were both in danger. I needed to find Detective Monroe. Needed to tell him everything Elena had said. Needed to find out who Carlos Martinez was. And where he was now. But as I turned toward the elevator, I saw something that made my blood run cold. A man standing at the end of the hallway, watching me. He was tall. And he was smiling. Not a friendly smile. A knowing smile. He raised his hand, gave me a small wave, and then he turned and disappeared down the stairwell. I ran. Not toward the man. Toward the nurse's station. Call security, I shouted. There's a man, he just went down the stairs. The nurses looked up. Confused. Ma'am, calm down. Call security now, he's dangerous, he poisoned someone. One of the nurses picked up the phone, but I could see the skepticism in her face. She thought I was hysterical, irrational. Maybe I was, but I'd seen him. Seen the way he looked at me. Seen the smile that said he knew exactly who I was. Carlos Martinez. It had to be. Within minutes, security arrived, 2 guards rushing up the stairs. But I knew they wouldn't find him. He was gone. He'd wanted me to see him. Wanted me to know he was here. It was a message. Detective Monroe appeared from the elevator, looking annoyed. Mrs. Davis, I told you to stay in the consultation room. Elena Martinez is awake, I said quickly. I talked to her. And everything you think about this case is wrong. His expression hardened. You spoke to the victim without authorization? She asked for me, and she told me the truth. About Mark. About what really happened. I explained everything. The stalking ex-husband. The fake relationship. The threats. The poisoned wine. Mark drinking it to test it. Trying to save her. And Detective Monroe's face grew darker with every word. When I finished, he said, "Why didn't your husband tell us this? He hasn't been conscious long enough to tell you anything." No. But he was conscious long enough to say, "Don't let her find out." Why would he say that if he was protecting you? I opened my mouth, closed it. He was right, that didn't make sense. Unless, the detective continued, there's more to this story than Elena Martinez is telling you. What do you mean? I mean that Elena Martinez has a history of making accusations against ex-partners. 3 restraining orders in 5 years. All dropped because she couldn't provide evidence. My stomach sank. You think she's lying? I think she's very good at playing the victim, and I think your husband might have been caught up in something more complicated than a stalking case. But I saw him. Carlos. He was here, just now, at the end of the hall. Detective Monroe pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. Is this the man you saw? I looked at the screen. It was Carlos Martinez, DMV photo, but the man in the picture looked different, older, heavier, nothing like the man I'd just seen. No, that's not him. The man I saw was younger, thinner. The detective's expression was grim. Carlos Martinez is 53 years old and weighs 240 pounds. That's from his driver's license, which was updated 6 months ago. Then who did I see? I don't know. But Mrs. Davis, I need you to consider the possibility that you're being manipulated. That Elena Martinez is using you to build a narrative that protects her and incriminates your husband. Why would she do that? Because right now, the evidence points to your husband as the person who poisoned her. And if she can convince you and us that there's a mysterious stalker ex-husband, she creates reasonable doubt. I shook my head. No, she was terrified. I saw it in her eyes. Or she's a very good actress. Before I could argue further, a doctor rushed past us toward the ICU. Then another. And another. Code blue. ICU room 317. Code blue. Elena's room. We both ran. By the time we reached her door, there were 6 medical staff inside. Machines screaming. Someone doing chest compressions. Someone else calling out medications. Through the chaos, I saw Elena on the bed, not moving. What's happening? I asked a nurse outside the room. She crashed. Heart stopped. They're trying to resuscitate. I watched through the window, helpless, as they worked on her. 30 seconds. A minute. 2 minutes. And then the doctor stepped back. Called time of death. Elena Martinez was gone. The hallway fell silent. Even the machines seemed to quiet down, as if the entire hospital was holding its breath. Elena Martinez was dead. And with her died the only person who could tell us what really happened tonight. Detective Monroe was already on his phone, calling his partner, requesting CSI to process Elena's room as a crime scene. I stood frozen, staring through the window at her body, at the sheet they were pulling over her face. She'd been alive 10 minutes ago, talking to me, warning me. And now she was gone. Mrs. Davis, the detective's voice pulled me back. I need you to come to the station. Give a formal statement about what Elena told you. What about Mark? I need to see him. Your husband is still unconscious. The moment he wakes up, I'll be questioning him. And depending on what he says, he may be placed under arrest. For what? He didn't do anything. A woman is dead. Your husband's fingerprints are on the murder weapon. And the only person who could corroborate his story just died. So yes, Mrs. Davis, he's a suspect. I wanted to scream, to argue, to make him understand. But what could I say? I didn't know the truth anymore. Didn't know who to believe. Was Elena telling the truth about Carlos? Or was Detective Monroe right? Was she manipulating me? And if Carlos wasn't real, if there was no stalker ex-husband, then what was Mark doing with Elena? Why had he been at her apartment? Why had he drunk the poison? Why had he said, "Don't let her find out"? I want to see my husband, I said firmly. Before I go anywhere. Before I say anything else. I want to see Mark. Detective Monroe studied me for a long moment. Then he nodded. Fine. But I'm coming with you. And if he wakes up, you don't speak to him until I've questioned him. Understood? Understood. We took the elevator back down to the surgical floor. The OR where Mark had been was now quiet. The chaos from earlier had subsided. A nurse directed us to recovery room 4, and there he was. My husband. Lying in a hospital bed, pale and still, hooked up to machines that beeped steadily, an IV in his arm, monitors tracking his vitals. He looked smaller than I remembered, more fragile. I walked to his bedside slowly, like I was approaching a stranger. In some ways, I was. Because I didn't know this man anymore. Didn't know what he'd been doing, who he'd been seeing, what secrets he'd been keeping. I reached out and touched his hand. It was cold. Mark, I whispered, I don't know if you can hear me, but I need you to wake up. I need you to tell me the truth. About Elena. About everything. Nothing. No response. Detective Monroe stood in the doorway, watching. Mrs. Davis, he said quietly. There's something else you should know. I looked up. What? We found something in your husband's car. A life insurance policy. Taken out 3 months ago. With you as the beneficiary. My heart stopped. So? It's for $2 million. And Elena Martinez is listed as the secondary beneficiary. The room tilted. What are you saying? I'm saying that if something happened to you, your husband would collect $2 million. And if something happened to him, Elena Martinez would collect it. That's insane. Mark would never what? Take out a secret life insurance policy? Have a secret relationship? Keep secrets? I couldn't respond. Because he was right. Mark had been keeping secrets. For months. And I had no idea how deep they went. The policy was purchased through an online broker, Detective Monroe continued. Anonymous. Paid for with cash transfers. Very carefully hidden. Why are you telling me this? Because I think your husband was planning something. And I think Elena Martinez was part of it. Whether she was a victim or an accomplice, I don't know yet. But that policy suggests this wasn't just about stalking. What was it about? Before he could answer, the machines next to Mark's bed started beeping faster. I looked at the monitors. His heart rate was increasing. He's waking up, the nurse said, rushing in. Mark's eyes fluttered. His hand twitched in mine. Mark? I leaned closer. Mark, can you hear me? His eyes opened, unfocused at first. Then they found mine. And what I saw there made my blood run cold. Not relief. Not love. Fear. Pure, absolute fear. Sarah, he whispered, you need to run. Run? I stared at Mark, his hand gripping mine with surprising strength for someone who'd just woken from unconsciousness. What are you talking about? Run from what? His eyes darted to Detective Monroe standing in the doorway, then back to me. Not here. Can't talk here. Mr. Davis, Detective Monroe stepped forward, pulling out his badge. I'm Detective Monroe. I need to ask you some questions about Elena Martinez. Mark's face went even paler. Is she? She's dead, the detective said bluntly. Died about 20 minutes ago. Heart stopped. They couldn't revive her. I watched Mark's reaction carefully. Watched for guilt. For relief. For anything that would tell me the truth. What I saw was devastation. Pure, genuine devastation. He closed his eyes, tears leaking from the corners. No, 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 no. This wasn't supposed to happen. I was trying to stop it. I was trying to save her. Save her from what? Detective Monroe pulled out his notebook. From the poison you gave her? I didn't poison her. Mark tried to sit up but gasped in pain, falling back against the pillows. I was trying to help her. To protect her. From your stalker ex-husband Carlos? The detective asked. The one who doesn't exist? Mark's eyes widened. What? Carlos exists. He's real. He's the one who... He stopped, looking at me. Sarah, I know you don't understand. I know you think I've been cheating. Lying. But everything I did was to keep you safe. Then tell me the truth, I said. My voice came out harder than I intended. All of it. No more secrets. Mark took a shaky breath. Winced. The nurse checked his vitals, adjusted his IV. 6 months ago, he began. Elena Martinez came to my office. She was a client. Her tax returns were a mess. Her ex-husband had been hiding income, manipulating their finances during the divorce. She needed help untangling everything. So you were just her accountant, I said. At first, yes. But during our meetings, she started telling me things. About Carlos. About how he'd been following her. Showing up at her apartment. Her work. Leaving threatening messages. She'd filed restraining orders. But he violated them constantly. The police couldn't help because he was always just careful enough not to get caught. Detective Monroe was writing everything down. Go on. One day, Carlos followed her to my office, waited outside. When Elena left, he confronted her in the parking lot. I heard her screaming and ran out. Carlos had her pinned against a car. I pulled him off, threatened to call the police. He ran. But before he did, he looked right at me and said, "You just made a big mistake." Mark's hand was shaking in mine now. 2 days later, I got photos in the mail. Of you, Sarah. Coming out of your yoga class. Getting coffee. Walking to your car. Dozens of them. And a note that said, "Back off or she's next." My blood turned to ice. He was following me. I didn't know what to do. If I told you, you'd be terrified. If I went to the police, Carlos would know and might escalate. So I made a plan with Elena. We'd pretend to be together. Make Carlos think she'd moved on with someone who could protect her. Make him think I was too involved to be scared off. The dinners, I said. The restaurants. The hand-holding. All staged. Elena made sure we were seen in public. Posted photos on social media. Anything to convince Carlos that she was with someone else now, that he'd lost. But it didn't work, Detective Monroe said. No, it made him angrier, more obsessed. He started threatening both of us, said he'd kill Elena. Kill me. Kill you, Sarah. He said he'd burn our house down with you inside. I felt sick. Why didn't you tell me any of this? Mark's eyes filled with tears. Because I was terrified. Terrified that if you knew, you'd do something. Confront him. Go to the police. Something that would trigger him. I thought if I could just handle it quietly, if I could just make him go away, you'd never have to know. You'd never have to be afraid. So instead you let me think you were cheating. I know how it looked, and I hated myself for it. Every time I saw the suspicion in your eyes, every time you asked me where I'd been, and I had to lie, it killed me, but I didn't know what else to do. What happened tonight? Detective Monroe asked. Why were you at Elena's apartment? Mark's jaw clenched. Elena called me around 6. She was panicking. Said Carlos had shown up at her door with wine. Said he wanted to apologize, talk things through. She knew it was a trap, but she let him in anyway because she thought maybe, just maybe, he'd finally accepted it was over. But he poisoned the wine, I said. She didn't realize it at first. They talked for maybe 20 minutes. He was calm. Rational. Almost too rational. Then he left. She poured herself a glass of wine and called me. Said something felt off. That's when I told her not to drink it, but she'd already had some. She started feeling dizzy, nauseous. I told her to call 911 and I'd meet her at the hospital. But you went to her apartment first, the detective said. Because I saw Carlos's car driving away as I was heading there. I knew he'd done something. When I got inside, Elena was on the floor. The wine bottle was open. I smelled it almonds. Antifreeze. I called 911 again, but I needed to be sure. Needed to confirm it was poisoned so I could tell the paramedics what they were dealing with. So you drank it, I whispered. Just a sip, just enough to taste it, to be certain. But it must have been more concentrated than I thought because within minutes I was dizzy too. I tried to drive to the hospital but I blacked out. Detective Monroe looked skeptical. That's a very convenient story, Mr. Davis. The only problem is we can't find any evidence that Carlos Martinez exists. No criminal record. No restraining orders filed by Elena Martinez against anyone named Carlos. No DMV records matching the description. Mark's face went white. That's impossible. Elena showed me the restraining orders. The police reports. Did you verify them? No, I trusted her. So for all you know, she fabricated everything. Why would she do that? That's what I'm trying to figure out. The detective turned to me. Mrs. Davis, Your husband had a $2 million life insurance policy with you as the primary beneficiary, and Elena Martinez as the secondary. Did you know about that? Mark's eyes went wide. What? No. I didn't take out any policy. The signature on the application is yours. Then it's forged. I never signed anything like that. Mr. Davis, I'm going to be very direct with you. Either you're lying to protect yourself, or someone has gone to extraordinary lengths to frame you for attempted murder. And right now, the evidence suggests the former. I'm telling the truth. Then prove it. Give me something concrete, some evidence that Carlos Martinez exists. Security footage. Text messages. Anything. Mark's face crumbled. I deleted everything. Elena told me to. She said if Carlos found any evidence that we were communicating, it would make things worse. So I deleted every text, every email, every call log. How convenient. I'm not lying. Mark was getting agitated now. The machines beeped faster. The nurse stepped forward, concerned. Mr. Davis, you need to calm down. I can't calm down. My wife thinks I'm a cheater and a murderer. Elena is dead, and the man who did this is still out there. What man? Detective Monroe pressed. Give me a name, an address, a license plate, anything. Mark opened his mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. I don't know his real name, he finally admitted. Elena always just called him Carlos. I never met him face to face except that one time in the parking lot, and it was dark. I didn't get a good look. So you're telling me you risked your marriage, your reputation, possibly your life, for a woman you barely knew, to protect her from a man you can't identify, based entirely on her word? When the detective put it like that, it sounded insane. But looking at Mark's face at the desperation and fear and genuine confusion there, I didn't think he was lying. I thought he'd been played. And so had I. Elena Martinez isn't who you think she is, I said quietly. Both men looked at me. Before she died, she told me the same story Mark just told. About Carlos, about the stalking, about the threats. But detective, you said she has a history of making false accusations. What if this is what she does? What if she targets men, manipulates them into thinking they're protecting her, and then uses them somehow? For what purpose? I don't know. But that life insurance policy, what if she took it out? What if she forged Mark's signature? What if she was planning to kill him and collect the money? Then why is she dead and he's alive? I didn't have an answer for that. None of us did. But I knew one thing for certain. We were missing something. Some crucial piece of information that would make all of this make sense. And I was going to find it. The nurse finally intervened, insisting that Mark needed rest and that we all needed to leave. Detective Monroe agreed reluctantly. I'll have an officer posted outside this door. Mr. Davis, you're not under arrest yet, but you're not free to leave either. Understood? Mark nodded weakly. He looked exhausted, defeated. As the detective stepped into the hallway to make calls, I stayed behind for just a moment. Sarah, Mark whispered. I know you don't believe me. I know how this looks. But I swear on everything I love I never cheated on you. I never wanted to hurt anyone. I was just trying to protect you. I wanted to believe him. Wanted to so badly it physically hurt. But doubt had planted itself so deep I didn't know if I could ever fully trust him again. Why didn't you just tell me? I asked. Even if you thought it would scare me, even if you thought I'd do something reckless, why didn't you trust me enough to tell me the truth? Because I already lost my first wife, he said quietly. I froze. What? Mark had been married before me. I knew that. His first wife, Jennifer, had died in a car accident 8 years ago. Before we met, it wasn't an accident, Mark said, tears streaming down his face now. She was murdered by a man who'd been stalking her. A man I didn't take seriously until it was too late. She told me she felt like someone was following her. I brushed it off, told her she was being paranoid. And then, one night, he ran her off the road. My hand flew to my mouth. I never told you because I couldn't bear to talk about it. But when Elena came to me with the same story, when she showed me photos of someone following her, threatening her, I couldn't ignore it. I couldn't make the same mistake twice. I couldn't lose someone else because I didn't act. So you sacrificed our marriage to save hers. I thought I could do both. I thought I could help her and come home to you and eventually everything would be fine. But I was wrong. I was so wrong. And now Elena is dead anyway, and I've lost you, and I don't even know if Carlos is real or if I've been manipulated this entire time. He broke down completely then, sobbing. The machines beeping erratically. The nurse rushed back in. You need to leave. Now. His heart rate is too high. I stepped back, my own tears falling. I'm sorry, Mark choked out. Sarah, I'm so sorry, for all of it. I didn't know what to say. So I just walked out. In the hallway, Detective Monroe was waiting. I need to check on something, he said. Elena Martinez's apartment. The crime scene team should be there by now. I want you to come with me. Why? Because I think you're right. I think there's more to this story, and I think the answers are in that apartment. 20 minutes later, we pulled up to a modest apartment building on Riverside Drive. Yellow crime scene tape was already stretched across the entrance to Unit 2B. Officers were photographing everything, dusting for prints, collecting evidence. Detective Monroe showed his badge and led me inside. The apartment was small, one bedroom, sparsely furnished, but neat, organized, almost obsessively so. This is where Elena Martinez lived? I asked. Something felt off. According to her lease, yes. But it didn't feel lived in. It felt staged. Like a movie set designed to look like an apartment but missing all the personal touches that make a space a home. Detective. One of the crime scene techs called out. You need to see this. We followed him to the bedroom. He'd pulled back the carpet in the closet, revealing a hidden safe bolted to the floor. It was already open when we found it, the tech said. Inside the safe were documents. Passports. Multiple passports, all with Elena Martinez's photo, but different names. Sarah Chen, Maria Rodriguez, Kate Williams. She had fake identities, I breathed. Not just fake identities. Detective Monroe was flipping through a folder he'd pulled from the safe. Insurance policies, multiple policies, all taken out on different men over the past 5 years. All with her listed as the beneficiary. He showed me the papers. 6 different men, 6 different policies, all worth between $1 and $3 million. Oh my God, I whispered. She was scamming them. Not just scamming. 3 of these men are dead. Car accidents, drownings, 1 apparent suicide. My blood ran cold. She killed them. Or had them killed. We'll need to investigate further. But Mrs. Davis, your husband wasn't protecting Elena Martinez. He was her next target. Everything clicked into place. The whole story. The fake stalker. The threats. The staged relationship. She'd been manipulating Mark. Building a narrative. Creating evidence of a relationship so that when he mysteriously died, she could claim the life insurance money. But the poison, I said. If she was trying to kill Mark, why did she end up poisoned too? Maybe something went wrong. Maybe Mark figured it out. Maybe she underestimated him. Or maybe, another tech called from the bathroom. The person who killed her wanted it to look like a murder-suicide. He emerged holding a cell phone in an evidence bag. Found this in the toilet tank. Burner phone. Recent calls to a number registered to a Rafael Santos. Detective Monroe took the phone. Scrolled through the messages. His face went pale. What? I asked. What does it say? He showed me the screen. The messages were clear. Explicit. Damning. Rafael Santos, whoever he was, had been Elena's partner. They'd been running this insurance scam together for years. Targeting lonely men. Vulnerable men. Men who wanted to help. And Mark had been their latest mark. But something had gone wrong tonight. The messages showed an argument. Rafael accusing Elena of getting too emotionally involved. Elena insisting the plan was working. And then, in the final message sent at 6:15 p.m. 30 minutes before Elena was poisoned, Rafael had written, "You're compromised. I'm ending this. Tonight." Rafael Santos poisoned her, I said, to keep her from talking, to tie up loose ends, and try to frame your husband for it. Detective Monroe was already on his phone. Calling for backup, putting out an APB on Rafael Santos. But I was thinking about something else. Mark said he saw Carlos driving away from Elena's apartment. What if that was Rafael? Description. I thought back to what Mark had said, and to the man I'd seen in the hospital hallway. Tall, dark hair, late 30s, sharp features. Detective Monroe pulled up a photo on his tablet. Is this him? Rafael Santos. Exactly as I'd described him. The man I'd seen watching me. Yes, I breathed. That's him. Then he's still here. Still in the city. And Mrs. Davis. The detective's face was grim. If he thinks your husband can identify him, if he thinks you know too much, you're both still in danger. We raced back to the hospital. Detective Monroe had called ahead, warning the officers stationed outside Mark's room. Sending backup. Alerting hospital security. But when we burst through the doors of the recovery floor, the hallway was chaos. Nurses running, doctors shouting, alarms blaring. And the officer who was supposed to be guarding Mark's door was unconscious on the floor, blood trickling from a wound on his head. No, I breathed. No, no, no. I ran to Mark's room. The door was open. The bed was empty. He was gone. Where is he? I grabbed a nurse. Where's my husband? Someone came in dressed like a doctor, we thought. She was shaking, terrified. He said Mr. Davis needed emergency surgery. Took him down to the OR. What doctor? What did he look like? I don't. He had scrubs, a surgical mask. I didn't see his face clearly. Detective Monroe was already on his radio. Lockdown. Now. Nobody leaves this hospital. I want every exit covered. But I knew it was too late. Rafael Santos had Mark, and he had at least a 5-minute head start. The parking garage, I said. He'll take him to the parking garage. We ran. Through hallways. Downstairs. Past startled visitors and staff. The parking garage was massive. 6 levels. Hundreds of cars. Split up, Detective Monroe ordered the backup officers who'd arrived. Check every level. Look for anyone fitting Rafael Santos's description. I ran to the 3rd level, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. And then I heard it. A voice. Shouting. Mark's voice. I followed the sound to the far corner of the level, behind a white van. And there they were. Rafael Santos had Mark on the ground, a gun pressed to his temple. Don't move, Rafael shouted when he saw me. Don't come any closer or I'll kill him right now. I stopped. Hands up. Okay, just don't hurt him. Your husband ruined everything, Rafael spat. Months of planning, months of work, and he had to be a hero. Had to figure it out. I didn't figure anything out, Mark said weakly. He was still so pale, still so sick from the poison. I thought I was helping Elena. I thought she was getting soft, Rafael interrupted. Started actually caring about you. Started questioning the plan. Said maybe we should call it off. I couldn't let that happen. So you killed her, I said. Poisoned her and tried to frame Mark for it. Smart girl. And it would have worked if she died before she could talk. But she had to wake up. Had to tell you her sob story. Had to ruin everything. The police know, I said. They know about the insurance scams, about the fake identities, about the other men you killed. It's over. It's not over until I say it's over. Rafael's hand was shaking, the gun pressed harder against Mark's head. I saw Mark wince, saw him close his eyes like he was accepting his fate, and I couldn't let that happen. Rafael, I said softly, let him go. You can still get away. But if you kill him, if you kill a man in police custody in the middle of a hospital, you'll never make it out of here alive. I'm already a dead man, might as well take him with me. No. I lunged forward without thinking. And everything happened at once. Rafael turned the gun toward me. Mark, despite being weak and poisoned and barely conscious, threw himself at Rafael's legs. A gunshot rang out. And someone screamed. I hit the ground hard, my ears ringing, not sure if I'd been shot or not. When I looked up, Detective Monroe was standing there, his weapon drawn, smoke still rising from the barrel. Rafael Santos was on the ground, not moving. And Mark was crawling toward me, blood on his hospital gown, his face a mask of terror. Sarah, he gasped. Sarah, are you hurt? I checked myself. No blood. No pain. The bullet had missed. I'm okay, I said. I'm okay. He collapsed into my arms, and we sat there on the cold concrete of the parking garage, holding each other, both of us shaking and crying and alive. Alive. The paramedics arrived within minutes. Checked Mark over, insisted he needed to get back to his room immediately. As they loaded him onto a stretcher, he grabbed my hand. "I'm sorry," he said, "for all of it, for the lies, for the secrets, for making you doubt us." "I know," I said. And I meant it. I finally believed him, finally understood. He'd been trying to save someone, and he'd nearly died for it. "Would you stay with someone after discovering a secret like this?" I asked quietly. Mark looked at me with those tired, honest eyes. "I don't know, would you?" And I realized I didn't know either. Our marriage had been built on trust, and that trust had been shattered, not by infidelity, but by secrets. By lies told with good intentions, by a husband who thought protecting me meant keeping me in the dark. But we were alive, both of us. And maybe that was enough to start rebuilding. "We'll figure it out," I said finally. "One day at a time." He squeezed my hand. "One day at a time." As they wheeled him back inside, Detective Monroe approached me. "You saved his life," he said. "That was either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. Rafael Santos is dead. The case against him is solid. And with the evidence we found in Elena's apartment, we'll be reopening investigations into those other deaths. Your husband's name will be cleared." "Thank you. But Mrs. Davis..." He paused. "Your husband kept a dangerous secret. He lied to you for months. He let you think the worst of him rather than trust you with the truth. Are you sure you want to stay with someone who makes those kinds of choices?" I looked toward the hospital entrance where they'd just taken Mark. "I don't know," I admitted. "But I know I'm not ready to give up yet." 3 months later, Mark and I were sitting in couples therapy. It was our 12th session. Progress was slow. Trust wasn't something you could rebuild overnight. But we were trying. Mark had been cleared of all charges. Rafael Santos's death had closed the case. The insurance policy had been voided once it was proven to be fraudulent. And we'd learned the full truth. Elena Martinez, real name Emma Hartley, had been running insurance scams for 8 years. Rafael Santos had been her partner and lover. Together, they'd killed at least 4 men and attempted to kill 3 others, including Mark. Mark's guilt over Elena's death had been overwhelming at first. But his therapist reminded him that he'd been a victim too. Manipulated. Used. Nearly killed. It wasn't his fault. As for us, we were taking it day by day. Some days were good. We'd laugh over dinner, hold hands while watching TV, remember why we'd fallen in love in the first place. Other days were hard. I'd see him on his phone and feel that familiar spike of suspicion. He'd come home late, and I'd wonder where he'd really been. Trust, once broken, didn't heal cleanly. It left scars. But we were trying. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. "Would you stay with a partner after discovering a secret like this?" our therapist asked during one session. I looked at Mark. At the man who'd kept devastating secrets but had done it thinking he was protecting me. At the man who'd nearly died trying to help someone. At the man who was now fighting every day to prove he could be trusted again. "I don't know if I would recommend it," I said honestly, "but I'm staying, because I love him, and because I think the man he was trying to be the protector, the helper is still in there somewhere. I just need him to learn that protecting me doesn't mean keeping me in the dark." Mark nodded. "I'm learning. It's hard, but I'm learning." And that, I realized, was all I could ask for. We left therapy that day and went for coffee. Just the two of us. Talking. Really talking. About our fears. Our hopes. Our future. It wasn't perfect. It probably never would be. But it was ours. And for now, that was enough.